My name's Logan, and I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression about 11 or 12 years ago. It's something I've been experiencing for most of my adolescence on. Mental health, it's a roller coaster, but getting treatment, it makes a world of difference. So I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression when I was about 18 years old. I had been experiencing it for several years leading up to it, but I grew up in a very small town where no one really talked about mental health. It was pretty stigmatized, and I just didn't really realize that everyone wasn't experiencing what I was experiencing. I thought it was normal to kind of be so self-loathing and so tired every single day, and for your brain to be constantly at war with itself. And so I never said anything. And then when I moved away for university, I didn't have my support system anymore, and I completely shut down. I went from in high school being a straight A student to not going to class for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, not even really leaving my dorm room, not doing the homework, just my brain wasn't able to function like it used to function anymore. It wasn't something that I realized I was doing at first. I started and I made all these new friends, and we were doing stuff together, and then I started pulling away, and it wasn't something conscious. It was just I wasn't able to get out of bed every day, and I wasn't able to do the stuff that I was used to doing, and eventually they stopped reaching out because I wasn't giving them anything. So I became very isolated. And it again wasn't really anything that I realized was a problem. I was like, oh, it's fine, I'll just do it tomorrow. Oh, it's fine, I'll just go to class tomorrow. Oh, it's fine, I'll just go to class tomorrow. And that would stretch on for weeks. And it got to the point where I finally had thought, okay, I can get up and I can go to my French class today. And that was a huge step. And then I got to the class, and I realized that everyone there was preparing to do a presentation. And I didn't even know we had a presentation to prepare, because that's how completely detached I was from everything else going on in my life. And that for me was a pretty clear indication that something was up. It took me a while to kind of get up that courage to talk to my parents about it, because I kind of worried that they might just say, oh, it's not a big deal, you're just being lazy, just get up and go to class. And I was very fortunate that my mom especially was very, very understanding of what I was going through, and she really just made sure that I found a doctor that was able to sit down and listen to me, and we were able to start coming up with solutions. But for me personally, and I know depression and anxiety is different for every single person that experiences it, but for me, when my depression is at its worst, I can't get out of bed, I can't respond to a text message, I don't eat, I just sleep and stay in bed and can't do those little day-to-day tasks that most people, would be able to do. There's always just that voice of anxiety in your head that, for me, imagines the worst case scenario of what's going to happen if I don't get out of that depressed state. And it spirals about all your friends are going to hate you, everyone hates you, you're going to lose your job, you're going to drop out of school, you're going to die because you can't afford to eat anymore, because you've lost your job, because of this. Even if it's a day off and I was like, oh, I was supposed to do laundry today, the anxiety in my brain is just imagining the worst case scenario. But then the depression is like, well, I still can't function and I'm not going to do it, so I guess I'll just die then. It's a weird dichotomy of being so low and not being able to do anything, and having this voice in your head that really wants you to go, do this, because everything's going to be terrible if you don't, but not being able to do it. So it's really finding a medium ground between those two. I've been able to lean on other people for support, and I've been able to kind of establish some routines and find some treatments that work for me, and that's really been able to help me get through my day-to-day without it impacting me too greatly. So routines for me have been something that I kind of established with my therapist. We realized that if I didn't have a routine in place where I got up around a certain time and I took my meds at this time and, I made sure I made breakfast and I opened my curtains and just these little things that some people would think are so natural. For me, I didn't ever think to do them, or I would forget. And then I would struggle to get through the day. So we kind of established a list that I have hanging on my wall so that I see it every morning. And it just reminds me of the things I need to do every single day to just kind of get up and get through it. It creates some sort of accountability for me. I know I have to do these things and I know I have to hit these marks day to day. And for me, it's always kind of helped to make sure that I'm not just staying in bed all day. When COVID first started, I was in a very fortunate position where I was able to stay home I think I was home for about 3 months at a time, where I didn't do anything. My job was closed and I was just home. And I found that actually really improved my mental health, which I didn't expect it to, because everyone that I knew that would typically think of themselves as being neurotypical was having the worst time. They were completely spiraling. And I was like, I'm great. So many of the things that gave me anxiety in my day-to-day life were having to go outside and fulfill social obligations that my depression sometimes just made it really hard to do, or being in crowds, or just all of those things where I didn't have to do any of it. I could just call people on the phone and I didn't have to, go into public. I didn't have to see anyone. It was like I had been training in some weird depression Olympics for my whole life. And I was always coming in short. And now I was like, oh, this is my time to shine. Staying home and not doing anything, that's for me. As time went on and as it stretched out, it has been more difficult. But I think like everyone else, it's just finding your new normal and establishing routines. So therapy and finding the right medication have definitely been ways that, help me get through the day to day. But I have tried, mindfulness and meditation and all those apps that people tell you to download because they're supposed to help with your mental health. And for me, none of them have really helped that much. I do meditate from time to time if, I really can't sleep, if my anxiety is keeping me up until 3, 4 in the morning. But for the most part, it doesn't do much for me. My therapist actually suggested 2 years ago that I get a cat so that I have some sort of social interaction in my day-to-day life, especially when my instinct is to always kind of isolate myself, so that even when I'm isolated in my apartment, something or someone else is there. And it really has helped, having her. I call her my emotional support demon because cats are the worst, but I love them so much. So she's made a vast improvement to my mental health. My sister tells me all the time that she doesn't worry about me as much because she knows that I have my cat. And then I also just have, comfort TV shows, comfort books that I'll go back to if I'm in a really low state and I'm like, you know what, I need to sit in bed all day and watch a sitcom, and that's what I'm gonna do for self-care. So for anyone else that's struggling with mental health, the biggest advice I can give them is if you're able to, talk about it. Find someone that is safe and share your experience, because for me, talking about it and getting it out has been very freeing for me. I kind of started owning it, and most people that know me know that on Tuesday nights it's therapy. I can't hang out because I have to, fix my brain. And for me, really owning it and accepting it has made a world of difference for me. It's a part of my life and I'm not going to be ashamed of it. So that's helped me. It helps other people to know that they're not alone, you're not alone, because even if all of us experience it a little bit differently, you're not the only one that's experiencing it. It's not as isolating as it feels, and being able to talk about it helps to stigmatize it and just makes other people feel seen. If you start feeling better, don't stop going to therapy, don't stop taking your meds. It doesn't mean you're fixed, it means it's working. That's a mistake I have made far too many times where it's like, oh, I feel great, I don't need to take my meds, and then I crash. So keep doing what you're doing. You feel better because it's working. So for anyone that's more, I guess, neurotypical, for lack of a better word, I think the biggest thing you can do is trust people. If someone in your life comes to you and they try and share their experience, be open and listen, and don't just brush it off and be like, oh, your life's not that bad, you're not that depressed, you're not experiencing what they're telling you they're experiencing. Take them seriously, and even if it's just an ear to listen, if that's all you can do, that helps. Also, take all different kinds of mental health conditions seriously and don't treat them as like the butt of a joke. Depression and anxiety are fairly normalized, like they are still stigmatized, but of the wide variety of mental health conditions, people seem to accept them the most. But for people who have bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder, eating disorders, ADHD, anything like that, those are just as serious and they shouldn't be treated as jokes. People will throw that around, like they'll be like, oh, she was crazy, like she's bipolar, or like, oh, I'm a little, like, I like things neat, so I have OCD, and stuff like that. But that's not the case. Like, it's serious for someone, so stop taking it so lightly and stop treating it as a joke, because it will really help destigmatize all different types of mental health conditions. Mental health, it is different for everyone, and everyone that experiences it is going to experience it in a very different way. But I think it's important that people keep sharing their stories, and we keep destigmatizing it, because the more we do it, the more help will be readily available, and more funding will hopefully be channeled into helping people with mental health conditions. And I think that's really important. Keep talking about it, keep doing the work, and know that you're valued and your mental health doesn't define you.